Siam, renamed Thailand in 1933 upon the forming of its first constitution, making the country a constitutional monarchy with a parliament, not unlike Great Britain. Siam was the inspiration for the Broadway play The King and I, based on the memoirs of a British governess hired in 1858 by King Rama IV to care for his many children of his many wives. Can you imagine a palace brimming with dozens of pubescent teenagers? Oh my Buddha! The play and movie is banned in Thailand, however, due to what the Thais feel is the portrayal of the king as somewhat of a buffoon. Through the ages, Thailand has revered and deeply loved its kings. Today, the king is supposedly the richest king in the world. Some Thais resent his wealth, claiming royalty is raping the country. The staunchly Buddhist culture also resents his many wives, which flies in the face of one of the most sacred Buddhist commandments: "Thou shalt not commit adultery." We would witness the king's opulence firsthand in our visit to the capital of Thailand, Bangkok. The highway into Bangkok belies the wealth of the royal estate. Our first impression? A third world city populated by a jumble of squat block buildings, devoid of any architectural features, covered with mildew. They line both sides of the highway. Most were 2 stories with small apartments on the second floor and businesses operating out of narrow garage-like spaces in the street level. As we bust into the outskirts of the metro from the airport, luxury office skyscrapers, exclusive hotels, and high-rent condo towers begin to spring up amongst the older subsistence neighborhoods. Thailand is an economic miracle, becoming an Asian tiger in just the last 30 years. Entering the city, traffic came to a virtual halt. The only vehicles making progress was the sea of motorbikes. Despite the congestion, we made it to our hotel, checked in, and hit the markets within a few blocks of the hotel. It was colorful, exciting, and perfectly safe. Food vendors were the most animated, creating their delicious street cuisine with a flair. Some of the offerings, however, were mystery food. Bangkok is home to hundreds of Buddhist temples. Our first exposure to the legendary temples of Bangkok was a visit to Wat Po, one of the most impressive. It is actually a complex of temples housing over 1,000 Buddha images, the best known of which is the reclining Buddha. It is 151 feet long and covered with gold leaf. In stark contrast to the lofty temples and high-rise towers of Bangkok is the botanical green zone. This is a royal project to preserve a piece of ancient Bangkok as it was before urbanization. The king wants to expand the centuries-old Garden of Eden, incenting current and future residents to preserve and expand the green zone. As part of our visit, we were given a cooking lesson. It started by making a chili paste to which coconut milk was added and reduced to a thick sauce. Chicken was then cooked on a large wok with the sauce stirred in. It was incredible. Oh my Buddha! After the meal, we were treated to a Thai foot massage followed by a walk through the botanical gardens. It had been a wonderful day, but it was far from over. On our bus trip back into the city, Joe gave us a primer on the Thai government and economy. The country is about the size of California and has a population of about 70 million. The economy turned the corner in 2001 when a newly elected parliament came to power on a platform of growth and rural development. Foreign investment, largely from China, flooded into the market, and the economic boom began in earnest. Consequently, migrants from all over Southeast Asia poured into Thailand, providing cheap labor for about $14 a day. The average annual income in Thailand is about $7,000. You're considered middle class if you make $15,000. These are some of the hardest working people in the world. Their number one goal in life is to get an education and learn English. Back in Bangkok that afternoon, we were treated to a spectacular drama at the Royal Theatre. The presentation was a vivid display of traditional dance, plus the traditional performances of mythical stories involving the abduction of princesses in the pursuit of an undersea goddess. We were mesmerized by the production, and our faces hurt from smiling at its end. Of course, no day would be complete without a tuk-tuk ride home. That evening, we found a wonderful seafood restaurant. The food was great, but the presentation was a bit unfamiliar to us. The server expertly filleted the fish for Judy. After dinner, Judy noticed a family celebrating a birthday at the next table, so, of course, she made some new friends and joined the party. The people of Thailand embrace their long and gilded history. It is part of them body and soul. Siam began its march into prominence when the powerful King Ramathabodo united the tribes of northern Southeast Asia in 1350, establishing his royal empire. He expanded it by defeating the Khmer Empire, pushing it back south into today's Cambodia. At the kingdom's center was the city of Ayutthaya. It became a city of great wealth with golden temples, as well as a center for the arts, medicine, and technology. It entered the world stage when the first trade treaty with the Western world, that being Portugal, was negotiated in Ayutthaya in 1516. In the late 1600s, the kingdom became embroiled in internal conflicts that rendered it militarily weak. Consequently, it was sacked and laid waste by its Burmese neighbors in 1767. They stole its treasures, then destroyed its temples, palaces, artwork, and written records. Siam eventually prevailed 2 years later, but the royal capital had been moved to a more defensible site. Bangkok. Today, the archaeological site of Ayutthaya is a shadow of its former glory, but you can feel an aura of greatness hanging over it. As we explored the ruins, we were in awe of the dedication it must have taken to build this magnificent city. We were now prepared to witness today's legendary opulence of Thailand's kings back in Bangkok with a tour of the Grand Palace. It is not actually a palace, but a palace complex consisting of residences of past kings and their temples. The palace complex was established by King Rama I. Coronated 15 years after the sacking of Ayutthaya, he wanted to exceed the grandeur of the former royal city. He built the first palace, then kings that followed him built their own palaces and added to the complex of temples. Kings no longer live in the complex, but the magnificent structures serve as ceremonial centers. Inaugurations, diplomatic events, and even an audience hall where the Thais can view royal remains, which are temporarily placed here in a golden urn. Two of the temples are of particular significance. First is the Pantheon, built by Rama V, dedicated to the lineage of Siamese kings. Next to it stands two towers, one for his mother and the other for his father. The towers are held up by crouching figures. If they ever get tired of their burden, there are always reserves in waiting. Thailand's most sacred temple is the Temple of the Emerald Buddha, built by Rama I. It is home to the Jade Buddha, an idol carved from a single piece of jade, 31 inches tall. It has quite an interesting history. It was hidden from invading enemies by covering it with plaster. It was rediscovered in the 15th century after a lightning strike cracked the plaster. Laotian invaders stole it in 1552. Rama I later captured Vientiane, claiming the statue and bringing it to Bangkok, where it remains today. Touring the Grand Palace, we'd worked up an appetite, but nothing could have prepared us for the dinner venue to come. We boarded a bus for a 30-minute ride to the Chao Phraya riverfront, the river that flows through the heart of Bangkok. As we waited on the riverfront, a large antique wood rice barge approached the pier. This was to be our vessel for our sunset dinner cruise. Wow, 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 oh my Buddha! It was magical. We were absolutely enthralled with the scene. We sailed up the Chao Phraya through the right aorta of Bangkok, past the world's largest retail mall, past the royal palace and magnificent temples. Modern skyscrapers rose from the city on either side of the river, as did five-star hotels. Restaurants of all shapes and sizes, from one-star shacks to five-star palaces, lined the river shore. Sailing back down the river after dark, the city lights came on and turned the river into a fairyland on steroids. A So we say good night one last time to Bangkok and to all the genuinely friendly and welcoming people as we give tribute to their tenacity to prosper in a rapidly changing world. We were now ready to visit northern Thailand, where we would discover a dramatically different facet of the Thai culture. We started in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand's second largest city and site of Siam's first capital in the 13th century. Interestingly, 1,000 years later, it is referred to as the Detroit of Thailand. We kicked off our stay with a dinner show featuring Thai cuisine and a magical performance by a traditional dance company. The young women dancers were beautiful and stunningly graceful. An integral part of the dance technique was the seemingly double-jointed hand and foot positions. The male dancers were also highly skilled with dances inspired by the martial arts. These just might be collectively the most beautiful people in the world. During our stay, we had fallen in love with Thai cuisine. One of our favorite restaurants in Chiang Mai was a classical hotel from the French colonial period beneath spreading ficus trees on the banks of a river beneath a full moon. The dinner was one of the top 5 of my life. Crispy pork belly. It was the perfect ending to a dreamlike evening. But what evening would be complete without a visit to the local night market? You could even have your picture taken with beautiful, women. Joe said at least 2 of them were ladyboys. But Chiang Mai is not the northern Thailand we had come to see. Our expedition included one of the most remarkable lodging experiences of our well-traveled lives, Hintok River Camp on the River Kwai. The bus ride into the camp took us through the Thai countryside and bamboo forests that gave a very primitive, even prehistoric vibe. Our arrival took our breath away. The river camp was a slice of paradise with large, luxurious tents nestled beneath the jungle canopy on a bluff overlooking the River Kwai. The tents were comparable in size to a small hotel room and had hot showers and conventional flush toilets. This was a resort with all of the amenities and common areas done in keeping with the jungle theme. The dining area was open air with a thatched roof constructed with teak wood. The tables and floors were also dark, heavy teak. The pool was a classic swimming hole, filled by a running stream at the edge of the river. But for us, the biggest thrill was the sounds of the jungle canopy. The songs of the birds were the only things that broke the zen-like silence of the camp. One other feature of the camp was not so zen. A small museum on the grounds told the story of the primarily British and Australian prisoners who lived and died in this former POW camp. There were 32 such camps in Thailand. Prisoners were brought to Hintok from Singapore and other British colonies after surrendering to the invading Japanese. Arriving at the camp, stuffed in suffocating boxcars, they were used as slave labor to build the Siam-Burma Railway over the mountains and rivers and through the steaming jungles. The railbed was cut into solid rock on the sides of the mountains, rendering the railway hard to spot and less vulnerable to aerial bombing. The railway was built in just 18 months on the backs and lives of 61,000 POWs plus civilian slaves. In all, over 200,000 died of various causes: malaria, dysentery, starvation, beatings, cholera, and construction accidents, including 600 POWs at Hintok alone. One of the most fatal stretches of track was laid through the Hellfire Pass near our tent camp. Prisoners were forced to work night and day, the work site lit by torches after sunset. The fiery scene was described as Hell's Fire. Another infamous site on the Siam-Burmese Railway was the bridge over the River Kwai. It was actually rather anticlimactic. The original bridge had been bombed and rebuilt twice. The steel bridge we walked over was built in 1943. Still, we couldn't resist taking photos on the 80-year-old steam locomotive in the gas-powered trolley. While on the bridge, we took part in the Buddhist ceremony of freeing a living fish back into the river.
This merit, this good deed will be for everybody, be happy and happy, healthy, the most important one, and have a good trip home. Ready? If you ready, I'll set them free now.
We distracted ourselves from tragedy and death with a triumphant and pristine cruise down the Kwai. It was wild and beautiful, with fishermen's homes and jungle hugging the shore. Further down the river, as we neared town, floating resorts began to spring up along the banks. Sadly, we left our jungle sanctuary, serenaded by the birds in the jungle canopy, traveling through the northern Thailand countryside. We paused along the way at what could be the most impressive temple in northern Thailand, the White Temple. The temple broke ground just 26 years ago and is totally funded by the world-renowned Thai artist, you take a shot at pronouncing it. You may recognize his style, if not the art itself. You too can purchase one of his paintings at auction for a cool $800,000. He wanted to build the most beautiful temple in the world to showcase the glory of modern Buddhist art. He has spent $10 million so far and has plans for another $90 million over the next 70 years. It will become Thailand's answer to Cambodia's Angkor Wat. The temple is white to represent purity. The The white is inlaid with tiny mirrors to represent wisdom. As you enter the temple, you are confronted by a green Buddha and a monk available for blessings. The Buddha is green because the artist feels gold is only suitable for those who lust for evil deeds. The temple interior is covered with murals depicting the battle between good and evil, between heaven and hell, using contemporary pop themes. Since Buddhism has no deities, they believe that heaven and hell exist within each person, and you fight the battle from within. The keys to winning the battle are the 4 pillars of Buddhism: kindness and love, sympathy, empathy, and being happy for other people's success. Number 3, compassion, and 4, ignore negativism. Meditation is the key to living those values. In stark contrast to the pillars of Buddhism, northern Thailand has a notorious history of drug wars, i.e., the Golden Triangle in the opium trade. This is the Mekong River, where the borders of Burma, Laos, and Thailand come together. What started as a miracle drug and ceremonial aid became an international epidemic of drug addiction. It was big money, and the currency was gold. Both the opium traders and French trafficked the drug to pay for their wars. From our vantage point overlooking the Mekong, we could view the city of Chiang Mai, Thailand's second largest city and historic first capital. A 1,000-year-old wall and moat still surrounds the old city. One of our first treks into the mountains of northern Thailand was a visit to the quaint village of Kampong. Rustic huts made from teak and bamboo were tucked into the mountainside in perfect harmony with the jungle foliage. As we walked through this charming village, I couldn't help but thinking I could really enjoy spending some time here in one of these homestays for about $25 a day. The narrow road led us to the local natural attraction, a beautiful waterfall. Our trek was followed by a quick snack on an open terrace of teak and bamboo. The view was a photographer's dream. A not-so-quaint scene was the mountain cave where 13 young Thai soccer players were trapped in an air pocket of a flooded cave for 18 days. They were discovered by divers 10 days after they had disappeared. The children had moved deeper and deeper into the cave, escaping the rising water until they were over 2 miles from the entrance. They were rescued by an international effort to extract them. The movie 13 Lives dramatically chronicles how they were rendered unconscious by injections, then fitted with underwater breathing equipment. Their hands and legs were bound, effectively turning them into torpedo-shaped humans, able to fit through 3-foot wide underwater crevices. All were saved. The beautiful mountains of northern Thailand are home to numerous tribes. One of the most colorful is referred to as the Long Necks. The people are refugees from Burma, today's Myanmar, who are persecuted in their native country. They are identified by the brass rings they wear around their necks. The rings do not lengthen their necks, but rather depress their shoulders. The ringing begins for girls about the age of 9. Thailand gave the people refuge and provided tools so they could support themselves, primarily weaving looms. Scarves are the most common item for sale. Even little kids sold their art. The people are stunningly beautiful. The children are absolutely precious. Saving the best for last, we visited the elephant sanctuary at Echo Valley.
So, with the trainer and with me, stay here. You are safe, right? Don't be scared to the elephants.
We were not prepared for how quickly we became emotionally attached as we got up close and personal with these magnificent elephants. I had never hugged an elephant, but actually touching this extraordinary beast and looking into her eye, I sensed a strange wisdom that spanned the eons of time. We were hooked. Our interaction began by making treats, then feeding them to the elephants. They lined up and took the treats directly from our hands. Lastly, we moved to the freshwater swimming hole. It had a small waterfall falling into the water where the elephants relished the cool of the water. They invited us to join them. The encounter ended in a surprise water fight. We had fallen under the spell of these magnificent, intelligent creatures. I think they really are human children trapped inside enormous bodies. I hope they remember this day. I know we will. Leaving northern Thailand, we stopped at a cemetery. It was the final resting place for over 7,000 prisoners of war from area POW camps. One comes away with a deep sense of loss and the profound waste of life and resources. Joe described one particular visit to the cemetery. The visit was scheduled to allow 45 minutes. Everybody was back on the bus at the appointed time, but for one man. He seemed transfixed, standing over one particular gravesite, weeping. All on the bus agreed that he should have as much time as he needed to be alone. The tour could wait. That story was a poignant reminder of the tumultuous history of Southeast Asia, a place where cultures and traditions have survived for thousands of years, despite wars, genocide, and foreign occupation. It is a testament to the character and tenacity of the people in each and every nation we visited. They survive on their good nature, their solid character, and on the strength of their commitment to family and community. They survive despite a modern industrial avalanche that threatens to bury them, their traditions, and their values. But through it all, the ancient kingdoms of Southeast Asia live on within the soul of each person. They occupy a place in our own memories and souls, as do the wonderful people who made us feel so welcome. To them we say, good night, and may your dreams of nirvana bring you peace and happiness.